In South Carolina, what do we say? We have to have a mission, a purpose.
Yeah.
And then we have to have the will in our heart to accomplish that purpose. And we say that our purpose ought to be our God, our children, and our heritage.
Yes, sir.
Well, now, when you are faced between a rock and a hard place, you got to get something besides you. And that's where your God comes in. And the same thing with Moses and the people of Israel. They were trying to get away from the Egyptians, but they were caught between a rock and a hard place. And what did they use? They used what was at hand. They used the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they stepped out with faith into the Red Sea with the Ark of the Covenant in front of them, following God. And they walked across on dry land. But then another time we have an instance where a stone, the 12 stones, and the children of Israel, the 12 stones are of those sons, the 12 children of Jacob. There was a brother called Joshua. And when we talk about, as in here, we talk about our seniors and we talk about our youth. Now, if we all have already figured out that we have to have God on our side, if we got a hard place behind us and a rock in front of us, we have to have God on our side to get across. But then once we get across there, we also have to have a plan. Because we still is not out of the woods. We are still not out of the wilderness. We still have a battle in front of us. The same as the people of Israel found after they crossed the Dead Sea, the Red Sea. They still had to walk and wander around for how many years? 40 years. But then each of us, we are the leaders today. And if we are not cognizant that we have to have God, and if we are not cognizant that we have to raise the children to take our place, then we have fallen down. We have not done our part. So just as they wandered around for 40 years, at some time catches up with you. Time caught up with them. Moses looked over and saw the promised land. But guess what happened? You got to give it up. Time catches up with all of us. He had to give it up to the next generation. And then Joshua came onto the scene. Alright? And that's the same thing as we look at these young people. You had these young folks from PD Baptist Church came out and sung for us. We have the young folks from the Mary B. Thomas Girls Youth Circle. The young girls, we're trying to train those girls from 8 to 18 into being a good citizen, being a model, being those that's going to take our place. And then we got the Knights of Pythagoras, the boys from 8 to 18. We're trying to take them and train them and tell them that you got to have God if you're going to get past the rock and the hard place. You got to have God in your life. But then in our training of them, that makes them ready. Because sooner or later, just like Moses got across the Red Sea into the Promised Land, and to see the Promised Land but couldn't get in, he gave it up to the young generation. And then the same thing happened, similar to what happened at the Dead Sea. Joshua finally got to where they were going to cross over into the Promised Land. And they were at the River Jordan. And what happened? They caught between a rock and a hard place. They had the wilderness behind them, the river in front of them. And what did they do? Just like I told you. You're caught between a rock and a hard place. You put God in the picture. Ain't nobody perfect. You're going to do things wrong. But then if you put God will change anything. You put God in the picture. And they put the Ark of the Covenant in front of them, and they walked across the Jordan on dry land, just like they did with Moses 40 years before. 40 years before. We have to teach our children, train our children to take our place. My question to you is, which one of you is going to carry the stone? And I'm going to do something very unusual. I'm giving you my subject for tonight at the last of my speech. Which one of you is going to carry the stone? In that last part, in conclusion, our heritage is not recorded by folk that is not of the darker complexion as completely as it can be if folk of the darker complexion record our history. We came through a lot of time. We came through times when we couldn't, it was against the law for us to be taught. So if you are not taught and you can't write and you can't read, then you can't record. And if it's not recorded in black and white, it didn't happen. That's what the law says. Then it's incumbent upon us to pick up a stone. And we at this time, so we are the ones who are leading our people now. We are the leaders. And we are training our people. We got to relate to our children those milestones that have been crossed over the last 200 years. Those milestones, those historical markers, so that when our grandchildren and great-grandchildren say, Mama, Daddy, Uncle, Aunt, what means these stones? You'll be able to tell them that these are the kind of things that happened, and these are the kind of things that the generation before you came across and came through. They were faced with many instances where they were caught between a rock and a hard place. But they put God first, and they were never able to move across. And we look at, as I conclude, we look at some of the past history of America, and look at some of the past history of the black folk in America. And we'll find that there were always those Joshuas that taking over from the one who was before them. Even at the formation of this country, breaking away from England, you had George Washington, who was the general of the army. But then also you had a black man there, Prince Hall, who petitioned George Washington so that black folk could fight along with the Revolutionary Army to free America from England, a milestone. You had Prince Hall there, who petitioned Congress to allow and have schools for black children to be educated. You have a milestone. And also, but you find that even in all of this, he was also a minister, a preacher. Even in doing those things, still there was God in the picture. And we can look down through time and the progress that we have made. Dr. Martin Luther King did a lot for liberation of black folks. But what was he? A preacher. He had God in the mix. Look at Brother Benjamin Hooks, the Grand Master of Tennessee, just died about a month ago. He had a lot. Look at his past, all the things, all the court cases, all of the battles, all of the battles he fought for us when we were caught between a rock and a hard place. He also was a minister. So those things of our heritage, we have to tell our children. Tell them who did it, and then tell them what they did. When you're caught between a rock and a hard place, somebody got to carry the stone. The question is, are you going to be the one to carry the stone? Thank you.